Hi. I am about 9 months outside of my first 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat. And one of the things that they tell you when you leave is that you have to practice an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening every day. And I did not know that when I went to the course. And so when I heard that on day 11, when they're doing the ending discourse, I was kind of heartbroken, like crestfallen, because I was like, how am I going to find 2 hours in my day? I don't have kids, but I have a full-time job and I have a busy social life and I travel, and how am I going to make this happen? So over the course of the last 9 months, I have been able most days to practice an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. And so I wanted to share some of the things that I found really helpful. The first is that when you leave, they give you a link for a morning and evening Zoom sit. And I'm out in California, and so this is 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And it's an hour long. They play a recording of Goenke, so it's the same thing that you got used to in the 10-day course. And what I think is really cool is that at the end of the hour, you can type in questions for the assistant teacher who's kind of running the sit, and they'll answer any questions you have, like, oh, I keep falling asleep, how do I stop that? Or I'm going to travel, how do I continue to do my practice? And people will come up with questions that you didn't even think of, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's a good question. What is that? And while you were not supposed to ask philosophical questions during this time, sometimes they do address those issues, and that's really cool. You can also ask questions for assistant teachers either via email or interview. And I have had some amazing interviews with assistant teachers where, again, more information that, like, I didn't know what I didn't know. So all this really cool information from them, and it inspires you. Another resource that I have found to be really helpful is in the app, there is access to not only the recordings that Goenke did, which, like, definitely download all the recordings. I download them all, and when I sit down to practice for an hour, you can kind of get a feel for, there's short recordings where he just talks right at the beginning and right at the end. And there's long recordings where he talks kind of throughout the whole meditation. So you can kind of get a feel for, you're sitting down, maybe it's 7:30, you're stressed about work, you're saying to yourself, like, okay, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to have a hard time concentrating. I'm going to do a long meditation, because when he starts talking again, I will have realized that my mind wandered. And I'll be like, okay, I'll come back to the technique now. So every few minutes he'll bump in, and sometimes he'll just say anicca, and you'll be reminded, oh yeah, okay, everything's changing. I'm gonna go back to my technique. Where was I? Okay, it was my arm, whatever the case is. So those recordings are really, really crucial, I feel like. It's also nice because there's the metta practice at the end. And full disclosure, I don't feel like I've been able to quite do metta practice. And I just accept that. And I just, try to relax during that time. And I'm sure that on my next retreat, or maybe one after that, it'll click and I'll be able to do metta. But the whole amazing thing about this practice is that you just accept what is, and you don't beat yourself up about it. So when I have traveled, and in some ways traveling makes it a little easier if you're on an airplane, because then especially if you have a long flight, you just meditate for an hour on the airplane. And it is funky because there's so much vibration coming from the plane. This happens on road trips too. Like if you're in the car and you're meditating for an hour and like, we have like a bumpy truck that I'm riding. It's like very hard to feel the sensations in your body, but you just accept whatever's happening in that moment. And it's kind of interesting to be able to note like, wow, there's a huge change from when I'm able to sit with no distraction on my cushion in my office versus like I'm on a bumpy plane or a bumpy truck. It's really interesting to see those differences. So the difficult part is when, like, for instance, when I went home for the holidays, right? And there's this pressure you have of like, oh, I need to spend as much time as possible with my family. So am I going to spend an hour meditating when I could be spending that time, watching a movie with my sister or something like that? So you get this kind of idea of like, should I stay up late meditating then? Should I enjoy my family time to the fullest and then go? Because am I going to be all strung out by the end of the vacation if I've skimped on 2 hours of sleep, 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening, because I'm trying to meditate before everyone wakes up? You start to find out some interesting things with sleep and Vipassana meditation. One of which is I used to wake up in the middle of the night, and then I don't know if you've ever done this, but you stress yourself out because you wake up in the middle of the night and you go, oh crap, I only went to bed with like 7.5 hours before my alarm went off. Now I'm awake. Now I'm going to not get the sleep during this period of time. And, you start to work yourself up into a tizzy. Or you wake up, maybe you had a bad dream, or maybe the moment you wake up, some nasty little thought pops into your head, and you're like, oh God, and you start like ruminating on the thought, and you start working yourself into a tizzy. You don't have to worry about any of that with Vipassana meditation, because you'll wake up and hopefully you'll be awake enough to realize like, oh, okay, that's just a thought. That thought's going to change. I'm going to take a few breaths of anicca. I'm going to feel my upper lip. What is my upper lip doing right now? And then I'm going to start scanning. And when I'm trying to fall asleep at night, I'll do the same thing. I'll feel the sensations on my upper lip for a few breaths, and then I'll just start scanning. And it gives your mind something to do other than what it wants to do, which is ruminate on things that aren't happening to you right now, things that may not exist if you're like me and you have anxiety about the future, things that happened in the past that like that person that you had that interaction with isn't even thinking about anymore. And you don't have to worry about that with Vipassana meditation. You have a tool that's going to help you fall asleep, get back to sleep if you wake up. And I always fall back asleep doing it. But even if you don't, like sometimes you lay there for a while doing it, it's still more restorative than fussing over the fact that you're not falling back asleep. Like if you're able to just remain relaxed and calm, then you're really not losing that much restoration compared to full-on sleep. Like Goenke talks about how Buddha barely slept. Like he slept a few hours a night because he was like, I got to teach as many people this technique as possible, so I don't have a lot of time to sleep. And he had enough energy because he lived his life doing this mindful technique. And I think that's something else that I'd love to incorporate into my daily life, because I've only been doing this 9 months. And I have started to notice that I'll catch myself in the middle of the day. If I am stressing out about something, I'll be like, oh man, this is just going to change. And a lot of the times I find that I'm stressing more if I've skipped a meditation or I've shortened a meditation, and it kind of becomes this funky catch-22 where it's like Sunday afternoon and you're like, oh, I just want to have like I want to have no responsibilities. I'm just going to lay on the couch and watch a movie instead of meditating. And then you're like, you know what? I'm not going to get as many benefits from this movie as I would if I just sat down and meditated. Like, there's almost nothing better for you than doing this meditation. So while it sounds like a nice idea of like just vegging out, you kind of pay for it. Because like Monday morning rolls around and you're more frazzled. You didn't sleep as well Sunday night because you didn't do your meditation. And then Monday morning rolls around and you're having more trouble concentrating in your Monday morning meditation because you didn't meditate on Sunday night. And at a certain point in time, I had started to feel like a little bit like, I guess, trapped in a way by the technique, because it was like, oh no, if I don't do this, my body is so sensitive now. I'm like so hyper aware of the things that are happening with it that if I don't do meditation, I really notice. And it's hard to know whether my body always had these sensations. And I just wasn't sensitive enough to feel them. I think that's probably what it was. So I started to kind of lament the fact that like, oh man, I got on this path. Once you have knowledge, you can't unlearn it. But it's such a wonderful technique, a wonderful opportunity that it really opens your eyes to misery and suffering in the world. And then you look around at people's behavior and you realize that these people that I previously would have classified as like an asshole, right? They're so miserable. When people in power are doing terrible things and you're like, this person's really miserable, and they don't realize it. It helps you have a bunch of empathy, because like I reached a point when I was in the meditation where I felt, I realized that I had been miserable and I wasn't keeping it to myself. I was making people around me miserable. I was spreading my bad mood. I was spreading my overthinking. I would work myself into a tizzy, which just hurts your body so much. But you don't realize it. And you don't have a tool to stop it. And I think that's been the biggest thing. It's like, are you feeling tired? Just do Vipassana meditation for a couple minutes. Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling sad? Whatever you're feeling, do a little bit of Vipassana meditation. Take a couple minutes to feel sensations on your upper lip for a few breaths, and whatever it is usually stops. So it's just the most amazing tool. I'm so grateful I have it. It's helped with my depression. It's helped with my anxiety. It's helped with my ADHD, which seems really counterintuitive, right? When you're the kind of person like I am, where I couldn't sit for more than a few minutes without wanting to like hop up and go do something else. I wouldn't, especially if I didn't want to focus on the task at hand, man, it was like, working was so rough, because it would be like, work for 20 minutes, get up, take a drink of water, sit back down, work for 20 minutes, get up and go clean a cupboard or like some random thing. But what Vipassana has been able to do is it gives my mind something to focus on. And there is so much going on inside your body at any point in time. I was shocked. There's all these sensations, like literally every cell in your body is doing something at every moment. But you never stop to feel it. You never develop the sensitivity to feel it, because quite frankly, it can be overwhelming, especially if you're just sitting and feeling that. And the first time I did Vipassana after 3.5 days of Anapana during the retreat, and I felt every cell in my body changing at once, and I like burst out crying because it was so intense. And of course that hasn't happened since, because anicca, I was in such like the right place, I guess, to receive that at the time, but there's so much going on in your body at any point in time. So having ADHD, it's like you don't need to go outside of yourself to find things that are of interest. Your body is doing stuff all the time. And understanding that and having a task that you're really concentrated on, because, you have hyperfocus if you have ADHD. Well, your task is Vipassana meditation. And once you sit down on the cushion, I've never gotten up from the cushion during my hour sit in the morning or evening or even at the Vipassana retreat, because they give you tools for, okay, if you're not able to focus on the sensations that are happening in your body, focus on the sensation that's just happening on your upper lip. Are you having trouble focusing on the sensations that are happening just on your upper lip? Then breathe a little more so that you can kind of more like, activate those sensations. You can feel the air coming in and out of your nose. And then if you're still having problems with that, you can stretch. So there's all of these like contingency plans essentially, that if you're not able to focus in that moment, there's something you can do. So once you've sat down to commit to that hour, like, there you go. As somebody who has ADHD, there is always something for me to do during Vipassana meditation. And then what was so cool about it was there's a 2-hour meditation every morning of the Vipassana retreat. 10-day retreat starts the first meditation from 4:30 to 6:30. I was able to sit for 2 hours without getting up, without moving significantly. And that proved to myself, as somebody who has ADHD, that it was possible. So I just can't recommend this technique enough. I mean, all the hallmarks of it's completely free. The people who are the teachers are all volunteers. They're all lovely people. And speaking of volunteering, there are so many people that are learning this technique that they actually need more volunteers to help, mostly with cooking. The food's really good at these retreats too. Like, I don't like to cook, so it was amazing. Like, obviously my husband does all the cooking, but it was so amazing to like have a full buffet every morning and at 11 o'clock every day and have like all these great options that I don't normally eat at home. But they need help. They need volunteers to help cook. And I've been kind of wondering like, I've only done one meditation retreat. I feel like I should do one more before I volunteer. And then they had this symposium on the benefits of volunteering. And one of the stories that came up was there was a kind of a crisis that happened during a meditation retreat where they were kind of understaffed already in the kitchen with the volunteers. And 2 people left. And then the next day, the power went out. So they had all of this food that it was in the freezer that was like thawing that they had to prepare. And it was like a total crisis. And the goal is that the people who are meditating don't know this. That the people who are meditating can just focus on getting the benefits of this service and growing in Dhamma. And the most amazing thing for them was seeing how people who had been practicing Dhamma for a long time handled the situation. People who have spent years learning not to freak out when something bad happens, not to panic, to remain totally calm. And I was like, I'd like to see that. So I think I'm going to volunteer for my next 10-day course, because interacting with people who are really deep in Dhamma on a daily basis, I think would be really enlightening. Because we live our lives, well, I certainly didn't have anyone in my life who's had a daily meditation practice for years. And seeing how they handle situations, I think would be really enlightening. Because until you've seen something, you can't internalize it and understand how it would work, right? We need these things modeled to us. So hopefully this encourages you to try a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat if you haven't. If you have gone and you're having trouble maintaining your daily practice in the morning and the evening, it can be really difficult. Having that routine, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. group sit, hearing people talking about it, listening to the discourses that, from the 10-day retreat, listening to those when you're driving to and from someplace, and then also listening to other Dhamma talks. It's pretty inspiring, and it will keep you going. So, good luck on your Dhamma journey, and I wish you to be happy.